Hi, this is Dr. George Pereira and welcome to the course English for Specific Purposes offered by IHS and OUM. We are in topic 10 is about classroom practice and beyond. Two main factors determine the materials and methodology used in an English for Specific Purposes classroom. The specialist knowledge of the learner and their prior learning experience should be taken into consideration in the ESP context. So, learner's specialist knowledge, what is it? There are categories in there. Conscious and content knowledge. The learner comes into the classroom with conscious knowledge from their job experience. Maybe working as an accountant in a company, maybe working in a hotel field as a chef or as a manager, and so forth. In addition, they also have other knowledge that needs to be brought out in learning so that they become conscious of their knowledge and will eventually be able to control the knowledge that has been taught. So the more familiar with the content, the easier is the processing of the knowledge. So the ESP teacher has to balance the career content and the language elements. So often the teacher does her job through facilitating rather than playing the central role. So what is the impact of learner's knowledge? Learner's knowledge must be tapped wisely to enable learners and teachers to work on the career content and derive the learning material. So in ESL methodology, the traditional methods of present, practice and perform may be inappropriate. So rather ESP learner may be better off with the reverse strategy. Perform first, then practice, and then present. The teacher can then be in a position to give feedback and fill in the gaps where repair or further practice may be needed. Then learning styles and strategies should be taken into consideration. Learners come with different learning styles, visually, some of them, others through listening and through touch and movement. And technology, of course, in this case, help us a lot to address the learning styles and strategies of the learner. Another aspect is that integrating methodologies of other disciplines into the ESP classroom. For example, case studies. The common tasks for business English are designing an advertisement, writing a poster, designing a questionnaire, writing a letter, report, drawing up a business plan and designing an announcement. Then project work. In case study materials are provided, but for project work, the learners have to generate their own. Their motivation can be higher as they own the material right from the beginning. They go out into the world to carry out the project and then only bring it back into the classroom. Other variations include gathering data from a questionnaire or library research and synthesize the information. Then another consideration is the class size. When classes are large, the teacher has to deal with different issues compared to classes that are small. So small classes could be okay, better than sometimes the larger classes. So when the classes are large, classroom management is necessary. These are some suggestions. Change in the class size, split the classes into small groups, team teach, combine classes for only specific sessions such as listening to tapes, change in the methodology, cooperative learning, pair and group work, focused feedback through posters, questions and use of checklists. These are some methodologies for classroom management. Then in small classes, teacher can consider the following: give the student time and space, vary physical arrangement, Be a partner to the student in sharing information and decision making. The use in technology is very important. For example, email, and there is another method called CALL, computer assisted language learning methodologies. You can do research more on that and integrate that into the English for specific purposes classroom. And emails have potential as a form of communication between the learner and the teacher. So in the classroom and beyond, there is no one methodology, but different methodologies can be used. And of course, it has to be learner-centered, and it should motivate the students, and it should be interesting and full of fun. So these are some study questions in the booklet provided. Read the article provided in the booklet and answer the following questions. Suggested answers are given below. So actually no suggested answers, because you have to be original in your reading. So thank you very much. This is Dr. George Pereira for IHS and OE. Hi, we are here to talk about the topic 10B. That is the last topic for this course. Of course, there are a lot of reading materials as well, which will help you with your assignment. So this is Dr. George Pereira once again for IHS and OUM for the course English for Specific Purposes. So the word evaluation can have different meanings. It could be the assessment of the students and the evaluation of the program. So assessment. Assessment is usually related to the learner's performance. So assessment or the feedback can serve as reinforcement, confidence builders, and even as a social obligation. So there are different types of tests suggested for ESP purposes. That is placement test. For example, in an institute for studies, higher studies. So for the placement test, you can have the English test, or the achievement test and the proficiency test. Placement test, that is used to place the students into right level of instruction. It's a diagnostic test. So that will help the designer to plan the most suitable materials or course for the students. Then the achievement test, it seeks to test the ability of the students after a course or parts of a course. If students have learned the syllabus, that is covered well. It's tested by the achievement test. This kind of test is related to class instruction and is a kind of test that teachers would use most. So just see how you're going to use a diagnostic test for your assignment for the students, news editors. And then you have to attach your achievement test, what you are going to do for the achievement test. Then in the universities also they have different tests. Malaysian University English test, that is achievement place, which is also often used for placement purposes. So these two are combined. Achievement test, after the English course they can have a achievement test, which is also a placement. For example, if a student gets band 3, that means the band 3 may be required for entry into the Faculty of Ecology, while a band 4 may be required for admission into the Faculty of Law. So that kind of a thing. Then the proficiency test, so it does not have to go through a structured course to be assessed for their language performance, but they have to go for study classes and study and sit for the course. For example, IELTS for academic purposes, as well as for skill migration purposes, as well as TOEFL. When you apply for a foreign university, they ask for these tests. Then the methods of assessment. Tests formally, as in a classroom test under time condition, is one option. For example, EST, English for Science and Technology, Most ESP tests are designed after a short ESP course. It can be used for occupational purpose, such as in the qualifying test for doctors who wish to practice in certain English-speaking countries. That is also related to TOEFL and IELTS. So there are informal methods of testing as well. They can use checklists, discussion, or portfolios as methods of assessment. Students can give self-reports about their progress, or there could also be peer assessment as a different way of assessing the students. Principles of assessment. When you assess the students, there are some principles. It's called FAIR VP characteristics proposed by Bashman and Palmer. Fairness, authenticity, impact, reliability, validity, and practicality of the tests. Test content and methods are derived from an analysis of a specific purpose target language use situation. So what is the target language? Let us say English for news editors, and that is the target, and you are tested based on that specific purpose. So this also should allow the interaction between the test taker's language ability and the specific content knowledge. So authenticity is related to the real life, and then activities background knowledge, and the specific abilities tested. For example, oral skills are tested, written skills are tested through different questions or from different methodologies used. So it has to be in a specific discourse domain, could be very argumentative, persuasive, or descriptive, level of general ability tested, and so forth. So course evaluation is another one. Apart from assessment of the learner, this is the course evaluation. There are many parties or stakeholders who would be interested in the outcomes. So you can use the course evaluation from examination of tests used, test results, teaching and learning situations and techniques, materials, syllabus, and administrative support and policy. So these can be different approaches to course evaluation, or we call the program evaluation as well. So in considering what is good evaluation practices, purposes and approaches, and general and specific test principles are examined. Can use the language successfully in specific discourse domains that warrant such use. There has to be justifications for further informed decision making about the directions to be taken for the learner and by other interested parties. So apply this program or course evaluation as well as learn evaluation or assessment into the assignment that you have for English for specific purposes for news editors. So you have to add that to your assignment.